Thanks for listening to the GOSH podcast, the Gynecologic Oncology Sharing Hub. We share real, evidence-based discussions on gynecologic cancers featuring stories from patients, survivors, researchers, and clinicians. Our podcast is produced and recorded on traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. It is produced by the Gynecologic Cancer Initiative, a BC-wide effort to advance research and care for gynecologic cancers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the GOSH podcast. My name is Sabrina, and today I am joined by Dr. Barbara Vanderhyden, a senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute, Corinne Boyer Chair in Ovarian Cancer Research, and Professor of Cellular and Molecular Medicine at the University of Ottawa. With May being Cancer Research Month, we wanted to sit down with Dr. Vanderhyden to reflect on her vision for building a multidisciplinary ovarian cancer research community in Canada. Ahead of the upcoming conference, which will take place on May 29th to June 1st and being held at UBC, we wanted to touch on the origins and the evolution of the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research as it enters its 12th iteration. We will explore how the conference grew from a small, ambitious idea into a national forum spanning basic, translational, clinical, epidemiologic, and psychosocial research, as well as why collaboration remains central to progress in ovarian cancer research and what Dr. Vanderhyden hopes researchers and trainees will take away from the conference. So welcome to the GOSH podcast, Dr. Vanderhyden.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I was thinking, in your own words, could you tell us what the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research is?
Well, essentially, it is a conference. It is the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research. Although I have to say that I often use the CCOCR abbreviation in the connotation of the Canadian Consortium for Ovarian Cancer Researchers, because to me, the conference is just the people. And particularly the people who come year after year, share their ideas, and are very openly collaborative, in a way that I think is relatively unique for most conferences, because we listen to everybody and we appreciate, let's say, and value the different perspectives.
Yes, so crucial. So can you take us back to the beginning in 2001 when you first sent that email to about 20 people with an idea that probably felt a bit daunting at the time? What problem were you trying to solve when you imagined a National Ovarian Cancer Research Conference?
Yeah, I think I have to take it 1 year back in step, because in the year 2000, in the fall, I became the Corinne Boyer Chair in Ovarian Cancer Research. And until that time, it was a rather difficult scenario across the country. You could count on one hand the number of ovarian cancer scientists working in the field. And once I became the chair, I felt some obligation to do more. I also am a kind of person that likes to play with others in the sandbox. And when you're dealing with so few scientists to play with, it meant that I needed to do something that would help increase the number of people who were interested in studying this disease and were willing to do so collaboratively. And that was my primary motivation. I just wanted people to play with.
That's awesome. So when you reflect back on that first meeting in 2002 compared to today's conference, what changes stand out to you most in science, in the community, in the way researchers work together?
Oh, everything. I have to say that first conference was quite bittersweet. If you go to your first dance in grade 7 or something, and the boys are all lined up on one side of the room and the girls are on the other, well, that's exactly what it felt like, and that the clinicians were on one side of the room at the conference and the scientists were on the other, and there didn't seem to be much interaction. And I was beginning to think, oh, okay, at least I tried. And so as we were wrapping up the conference, I was saying, glad you could come, have a good trip home. I thought that would be the end of it. And all the hands came up and said, well, aren't we going to do this again? And before I knew it, I agreed to do it again 2 years later. And 2 years later, just 2 years later, when they all came together, it was like night and day. It was scientists sitting at a bench with their laptop open, showing clinicians the work that they had been doing or the data that they had been getting. And I thought, wow, okay, I don't know what happened in those 2 years, but this is where we're going. This is our starting point now to be the type of community that I thought we ought to be.
Wow. Yeah. And it seems like multidisciplinary and translation have clearly been really core values of this conference from the start.
Yeah.
What or why was it so important to you that both basic scientists, clinicians, epidemiologists, and psychosocial researchers were all sharing that same space?
Yeah, but I think that's not a challenge. We have ovarian cancer is our challenge. It's a big problem. It's a complex problem. And I think if we take any one area of expertise and try to attack that problem, we're only going to make a dent on the side that we see. So we need the people from the different perspectives to attack ovarian cancer and our lack of knowledge from every perspective if we're going to blow up this problem and make it go away.
That's such a good point. I think bringing together different perspectives really creates fantastic research. So, over the years, the conference has moved across the country and reflected the culture of each different host institution. How has the geographic location shaped collaboration and national identity in ovarian cancer research?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the previous answer too. It's not only the different disciplines, but Canada is a rich country in terms of the diversity of its cultures. And that funnels right down to the individuals who live in those different communities. Their perspectives are different. And I think by having the conference move from place to place, we learn more about the working environments and the kinds of research that are done that are highlighted at each conference. But I think it's even more a bit strategic than that, because when we go to a certain community, quite often, and I think the last conference was a perfect example of this, we bring in people into the conference that have never been before. And the hope is that they like it, right? And that they'll come back, and that we grow our community with individuals from various perspectives and various locations to keep coming back and to share their perspectives as we try to tackle this disease.
And you've described, many times how rewarding it is to watch these collaborative or national initiatives grow out of this meeting. So, are there any particular moments or examples that have made you really think, wow, this is exactly why we started this?
Yeah, there's so many examples. And really what's happening now as time is going on is that new people are coming and they're bringing their new toys into our sandbox. And so we can do all kinds of things that we haven't been able to do before. I remember very clearly, I think it was after the second conference, David Huntsman going from one end of the country to the other, pit stopping at all the research communities across Canada, picking up granulosa cell tumors. So he could go back home and with his team, with this rare cancer, be able to identify FOXL2 as a driving mutation. And that was only possible because he could collect granulosa cell tumors from many locations, it being a rare cancer and not one that anyone had enough of themselves to do this kind of work. And how important a finding that was. In my own circumstances, at the time I started playing with small cell carcinomas of the ovary, the hypercalcemic type, there were no models. And without models, you can't test novel treatments. And my technician managed to get a cell line growing from this rare type of ovarian cancer. And so the first thing I thought was, okay, I can do what I can do, but I need to reach out to the people who have different areas of expertise and see who wants to play in this sandbox. We're going to do something with this rare type of cancer based on this cell line. And so a number of people across the country said, send us the cells, we'll do this, and we'll do this. And so we all worked on it for a year or so, and then we pulled all the data together and published a paper. And since then, those cell lines have gone everywhere in the world. And there are now lots of options being made evident that these patients who have this type of rare cancer could respond to these treatments, and they're now being tested in trials. This is for a type of cancer that is rare and never had any effective treatments before. So again, it's just taking advantage of the diversity of the expertise that's available right across Canada.
Wow, those are such good examples of like collaboration that really turned into life-changing discoveries. So thank you for sharing those. Another interesting thing about this conference is that it always includes trainees as a key part of the research community, which not all conferences do. So, from your perspective, why do you think it's so important that for students or even early career researchers to be involved, not just as attendees, but also as contributors?
Yeah, and I think that harkens back to my roots in trying to make this conference in the first place, is we were such a small community and there were not a lot of people to address a really big problem. And so we needed ways to grow the community. And to a certain extent, that meant training and supporting the individuals that could add to our community and strengthen it as we go along. And I don't mean inviting trainees to stand at a poster and hope somebody comes along to talk to them. I'm talking about engaging the trainees right from the beginning. So inviting them to be moderators of a session so they learn how to sit in front of an audience, how to listen to a presentation, and how to come up with questions that are relevant to that presentation. Inviting them to give talks. This is a huge opportunity for graduate students, both to develop their skills, but also to improve their CVs. And so we're doing little things that might feel little if you're a senior investigator, but I know as a trainee, these are big deals. These are big things we can do to help boost their confidence and their abilities in a conference setting. And so everything that I can do to support trainees being involved in the event, I think is incredibly important, because again, once they walk away and see that their work is respected and that their contributions have value, they'll come back and they will want to stay in this field. And I have numerous examples of students who were students when they came to the first Canadian Conference for Ovarian Cancer Research, or many of the ones in between, and they're now PIs and they are still valued members of this community.
Wow, that's such great proof of concept. And I can really say that as a graduate student in ovarian cancer research, I'm really excited for the conference myself, especially because of the focus you guys have put on trainees.
Good.
So this year marks the 12th iteration of the conference. What do you hope that attendees and especially trainees will feel or take away from their first Canadian conference on ovarian cancer research?
I'd like to feel that they walk away and felt like they belonged, that their research was respected and valued, that senior people in the field talked to them freely, shared their ideas. They could ask questions and not feel like there's a hierarchy of any sort, that this is an open and level playing field for all participants, and that everyone has unique contributions to make. And I want them to go home and say, that was the best conference ever. I can't wait to come back in 2 years.
So, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of ovarian cancer research in Canada? And how do you see this conference continuing to support that future?
There's so many directions this could take, but I'll stay focused on the conference for now. When I hosted the conference in 2022, I gave a special tribute to everyone who had attended the conference every single year that it had been offered. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One is that most of them had not only been at the conference, but that they had hosted the conference at their locations at some point in time, which is incredibly valuable because it's a lot of hard work, and people who are dedicated and loyal to this community know how important that is. I also did it because 3 of those people were retiring. And I was beginning to get concerned that the old folks, that when they got to the point of retirement, we would not be sustained, let's say, to the same level of enthusiasm that we had in the early days. And so that's why I did it. What I didn't know until everybody was there was that there were a lot of new young scientists in the group when they came to Ottawa. And so I chose from them many of the speakers so that they would have an opportunity to start being recognized as new members of the ovarian cancer community. And so if I have to say, what do I see the future of? It's because I can go to a conference, I see new faces, I see new contributors, people willing to share their ideas and their expertise. And so the future of this conference, I think, is really important, because as long as the conference is there, to support the trainees and to support the young investigators, then the research community will continue to grow and strengthen, and we will continue to do good things to tackle ovarian cancer.
Wow, well, what an inspiring finale to end this episode on. Thank you so much for joining us on the Gosh podcast. And I know everybody will be looking forward to CCOCR this year.
Me too.
And now we will hear from Dr. Lisa Dawson, a gynecologic oncologist, and Dr. David Huntsman, a pathologist and clinical molecular geneticist, who are co-chairs of the CCOCR.
So, to start us off, could you please share your role as the local organizing committee or on the local organizing committee for the CCOCR and what it means to you?
Sure. So my name is Lisa Dawson. I'm a gynecologic oncologist, but I'm really pleased to be the co-chair of the upcoming CCOCR to be held in Vancouver at the end of May this year.
And what is the value of convening researchers at a conference like this?
So in research, one can imagine research is difficult and research requires a great amount of teamwork and a lot of creativity and a lot of persistence. And, what we have learned as we watch successful research teams is that at the heart of success for researchers is going to be relationships and good teams. And when we bring people like we're going to do at CCOCR, bring people from all over the country together where they can sit together and brainstorm and talk about what worked and what didn't work, or what questions are evolving for them, or novel strategies or different techniques, it makes everyone's work better when we communicate with our colleagues.
Completely agree. So how have trainees and people with lived or living experience been included in the development of CCOCR this year?
Well, so from the very inception, when Dr. Vanderhyden started CCOCR a long time ago, trainees were really at the heart and soul of that. And her thinking then, and it's very true now, is that for a young person who's a trainee, who's wanting to become a researcher, I can't imagine anything more powerful than having the chance to network with just beyond your own local team and your own local supervisors from across the country, other like-minded people like yourself, also in the trenches, doing their master's, their PhD. I feel that trainees really are the heart and soul and the future of a wonderful field to live in, to work in and commit a career. It's really powerful. On the patient side, I have learned over many years that having patients involved in research, having patients involved in program planning, conference planning, always makes it better. Patients come to us with lived experience that those of us who haven't had a cancer can't begin to grasp. And they see through questions and difficulties and problems in a way that's new, that somebody who hasn't lived it can't possibly do. And so our patient partners are very smart, very dedicated and hardworking, and they see where a project is headed and where the strengths are, where the pitfalls might be, and how to support the researchers.
Yes, I think we can very much look forward to this being a great iteration of CCOCR. So can you give us a little sneak peek into what you are planning for this iteration of the conference, and are there any changes from previous years?
Well, we're coming at it with a fantastic legacy of many. I've been to many of these meetings over the years, every 2 years all across Canada. Most recently, we were in Halifax. Before that, we were in Ottawa, and now it's Vancouver's turn. Every meeting has been fabulous and had its own strengths and flavor and spirit. I think this time we're really lucky to be hosting it at the beautiful campus at UBC at a time of year that's going to be so beautiful. I think this year, have wanted to put a real focus on prevention and survivorship. And survivorship in particular is something that people are really only now beginning to understand what that means. Everything that happens after a person has finished their cancer treatment and all of the things that their life is impacted thereafter. Sometimes for the better, but lots of other negatives. And we really want to put a laser sharp focus on the science of survivorship and designing and building a network and projects across the country focused on supporting people long after their last chemotherapy is done.
Well, I know I, for one, am very excited for CCOCR, and I think everyone listening will be excited as well. Okay. So to start us off, can you share a bit about your role as the local organizing committee for CCOCR and what that means to you?
Well, we've been at the CCOCR meeting since our inception over 20 years ago, and we hosted once before. And the opportunities to share information, learn from each other have evolved in the same way our research team has. So we were delighted to be given the privilege of hosting this meeting, and we've been working hard on it ever since. The meeting is very inclusive, not just inclusive in terms of having patient partners, but also in the themes all the way to more social science, and the inclusion of endometrial cancer for the first time as a major theme within the meeting, which is really exciting because there was no real outlet for that work before. And we also have a really fun event, which will be a surprise for people when they come, but they have to bring clothes which can get wet. And I hope that's not the only thing people remember from the meeting, but I'm sure it's going to be memorable.
Fantastic. So what do you think the value of convening all of these researchers at a conference it really is?
We spend so much of our time on Zoom talking with people, and you can transact business on Zoom and with email, but forming collaborations and having free-form discussions where you're bouncing ideas back and forth. Maybe it's because I'm old, but that doesn't work so well for me on Zoom. So I'm really personally excited. I'm really excited for the trainees who are going to get to meet actually a lot of the major ovarian cancer and gynae cancer researchers from around the world are coming to this meeting. It's an incredibly rich opportunity to meet the people who are shaping the field. And it's going to be an amazing starting block for a lot of careers of the trainees who are at this meeting. So it's just going to be a joy to watch those interactions.
So can you tell me a bit about how trainees and people with lived experience or living experience are being included in the development of CCOCR this year?
Well, they've been involved in all stages, and we've really listened closely to our patient partners. And it's been a really interesting learning experience because on the one hand, we want to have elements in the program which may be particularly appealing to our patient partners, but also we can't be exclusive as well. So it's rather arrogant to prejudge what people are going to be interested in because some of our patient partners actually have backgrounds in science and want to go hip deep into what's going on in the more basic biology. And so we've had to sort of keep themes which are open, but make it non-exclusive. And the trainees are really what this is largely about. I mean, the interactions between the trainees and the patient partners are going to be fabulously informative for the trainees and really inspiring. But also there's the trainee workshop, which is going to be really great. And these trainees are going to get to meet global leaders and thought shapers in ovarian and endometrial cancer. And it's going to be wonderful in terms of them making contacts and maybe figuring out who they want to work with when they do their next level of training.
Fantastic. So could you tell me a little bit about what you are planning for this iteration of the conference and any changes from previous years that people can look forward to?
Well, all the conferences have been excellent in slightly different ways. I think this one is a little more international in terms of the speaker lineup and the international engagement because we've connected it to another meeting where we were able to bring people in. And the introduction of endometrial cancer is an absolutely new thing, which we're really excited about, and our partner Ovarian Cancer Canada is as well. And I am certain that this is the first CCOCR meeting where people have been obliged to run into the ocean. And I believe that will be memorable. I hope it's pleasant, but it's the sort of things you build friendships around.
Fantastic. Well, I know everyone will be very much looking forward to all of those exciting additions. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us on the Gosh podcast today.
Thanks for joining us on the Gosh podcast. To learn more about the Gynecologic Cancer Initiative and our podcast, make sure to check out our website at gynaecancerinitiative.ca.